Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing today? Am I muted right now? Am I muted? Oh, no, I wasn't talking. I was eating food. That's why I was you know, not speaking. Mm, I have a bowl of warm raviolis in my lap this time. Instead of eating raviolis cold from a can. I'm about to be done with Cowboy Gene. Ooh, I'm excited to see that. How has everybody's day been? How's everybody's night been? Are y'all doing okay? Mm, they're better cold from a can? Well, I've been thinking. See, my mother and at least all of my German family always have this thing that you need to at least have one hot meal a day. So it's good for your mental or health or whatever. And so I see no reason it can't be my first meal of the day. You know? I feel like my lips aren't moving enough. Let me check on something real quick. Okay. Unless am I very quiet right now? More so than normal. Up, I shrunk. I don't want to shrink. Ah. Wait, testing, testing. No, I guess it's fine. Maybe I'm just expecting more movement from myself. Because the brain so it finished. Oh, good morning, microwave. Did you sleep well? I actually did sleep well for once. So which is surprising. Very surprising for me. I'm doing amazing. I went home from work early yesterday because of the rain, so I have to go finish work today. Well, I hope you're able to get your work done quick. I believe in you. You got this. Ravioli, ravioli, give me the formula. All right, we're going to do our normal starting thing. For those of you who don't know, we say congratulations to the first, second, and third person who was able to check in, and then we say good morning to every other person who's checked in. Just so you all know that I care about you. And because Twitch cares more about you too when it thinks that you're here, and it doesn't think you're here unless you've interacted. Mm-hmm. Why is sleeping well surprising? I don't know, because I've just not been sleeping the best. I blame the state of the world, honestly. I'm gonna find a random person in public to blame for this, so give me a second while I Google a random person. Um, person. The first person to come up when I look up person is Wesley Person, Cleveland Cavaliers number 10 guard forward. Yeah, he's the reason I don't sleep well. Mm. Let's see, how's he doing in his current season? He was the number one all rookie team, number one NBA player of the week. Very nice. Yeah, he's the reason why I'm not sleeping well. I can't believe you, Wesley. Can't believe you. Good morning, Terrified Rhythm, and yay, dude. Fight him, I can't. He's much taller than me and built and is an athlete. I don't think it's going to work out very well in my favor. Good morning, Ziggy. Thank you for getting first. Good morning, Gibbets. Thank you for getting third. And good morning, Buttertub. Thank you for getting second. So close at the counting. So close. But you didn't make it this time. Mm. Morning, Vanya. Alright, let's go through all of our stream check-ins. First off, thank you, Poison, for checking in. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, Buttertub. Good morning. Oh, I'm getting patted, aren't I? Or did I? Nope, getting bonked. Rude. Alright. Good morning, Amy. Morning, morning. Good morning, Dexy. Good morning, Pandragon Alentia. Good morning, Momu Mia. Good morning, Chibbits. There's the headpads. Good morning, Dwarf. Good morning, Zero the Phoenix. Good morning, Carmia Sakona. Good morning, strawberries and microwave. Morning, Ocean and Dasha. Good morning, Island Rumo. Good morning, Keely Key. Good morning, Sofa Sultan Weverin. Good morning, Alex. Thank you for the stream streak, Vanya. I do really, really appreciate it. I hope you're doing alright. Good morning, Terrifying Rhythm. Good morning, Humina. Good morning, Clovatics System. Good morning, Vanya. There you are. Hello, Vanya. Good morning, Glitchy and Waverin. Thank you for the headband. And Amelia. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Let me eat a ravioli real quick. Good ravioli. I think I might want to try to make my own ravioli at some point. But I need a pasta maker for that. Jen wants to get me a pasta maker. I'll bring pasta for the basement, you see. What's the filling? Oh, these are like the Chef Boyardee ravioli. So, meat paste. Good morning, Magic Wolf. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I should probably mute the other things because I know I'm doing just chatting right now, but I'm a little tired. Yeah, I don't own a rolling pin. I don't own a rolling pin. I've been meaning to get a rolling pin for so long, and I don't know what it is. What's the one thing that I never seem to get? I think I've ordered rolling pins and they never show up. I've picked up. No, I don't. No, don't you. Shush. I understand. First off, the wine I have comes in a box right now. And then the water bottle, and my bottles are big enough. Plus, I want a rolling pin. Rolling pins are so nice and effective and good at what they do. I do not want to have to deal with non-rolling pins. They're annoying. They always have like a weird shape to them, and they don't function properly, and they're just so annoying. Well, yeah, but no, I want a rolling pin. I want like a French rolling pin. I try. I'm being denied. God denies me a rolling pin. Oh, their beefaroni is much better than the ravioli. Well, I know there's other options. I'm just saying a rolling pin is so much nicer, and I want a rolling. There we go. Everything's. I'm not a snob. I'm needy. There's a difference. A snob would buy like a nice rolling pin. Yes. No, but so I'm eating the ravioli from uh, Chef Boyardee. So it's a meat paste. And it can be filled with anything, but these ones specifically are a meat paste. Glass bottle full of wine or anything. Exactly, and I can smack people with a rolling pin, so clearly I deserve one. Fine, I'll go look and see if we can actually get a rolling pin and watch it never arrive again. Oh, that's fancy. I don't need a steel rolling pin. Steel's gonna make the dough taste off. We need a wood rolling pin, French rolling pin. There we go. Oh wait, I can get it with walnut. Why is walnut so more expensive? What is this non-defined wood versus the walnut wood? All right, you ready? You've been in the basement for too long. It's not working. It won't let me it won't let me it won't let me buy it. Why won't it let me what? Why am I being denied a rolling pin? I can't it signed me out. I'll try again later. Anyways, so lovelies. Just hanging out for right now. I might have. Maybe I was like, maybe I was a rolling pin in another life. And I upset God. And God was like, Gene, you'll never get a rolling pin ever again. I would be too powerful with a rolling pin. I would make bread, but all of it would be like millimeter thick. I'd make long, flat bread. And God would not take my sins lightly. Good morning, Meow Kitty Cat. Thank you for checking in. Good morning, Casey and Wild Kitten. Good morning, Dea. Oh, thank you for the follow, Magic Wolf and Ube Nuts. I like that your name ends in a Z. I was Chef Boyardee. Chat. My hair is the color of the ravioli sauce. I am Chef Boyardee. There's nothing. There's a lot of stuff on my couch right now. But look, everything else is clean. Everything else is pretty much clean. It is amazing here. How nice it is once you actually start cleaning up a place to get around. It's like, I'm excited to be in these other rooms now. Did I tell you I have a table? I found a table. I have, unfortunately, a lot of furniture that I've just found. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think I thought of something today. I've always been functional. I've just been barely surviving. I have a full time job that I keep down and can cook and can clean. I just don't clean. And I can do laundry. I'm a functioning adult. Butter's right. Butter's right. Salt has been stealing all of all the rolling pins that I'm supposed to be getting in my life. Salt's been collecting them and taking them all from me my entire life. They probably have every rolling pin I ever tried to order. So I've been looking at some games today, and what comes across my feed but a game that is packaged with Crime Scene Cleaner. So I take a look at it, and I realize I need to probably start playing weird Ukrainian or Russian games, or like Eastern European games because they look kind of fun. I mean, this one here is called Contraband Police. Like you go through a car and you try to check it for contraband. There's another game called uh it's called like Jail Cell Escape, Prison Escape. There we go. Where you try to dig a tunnel out of prison. I mean, I probably shouldn't let you all watch that because you might learn, but yeah, it looks like it'd be a lot of fun. I'm wondering what if I just start playing these kind of games, these silly like games, like Thief Simulator, Cheap Car Repair, um, Gold Mining Simulator, Recycling Center Prologue, Rap House. They look goofy, but I kind of think they might be fun. Mm, Stop giving people weaponry, chat. They're games. Because they're just like really, really goofy. And not goofy, but you know, they're interesting. I guess they're like on the verge of being uh trading job games, but still. Oh no, I found something. Service IT, you can do it. Pixelonic Electronics. Manage firm, challenge hacker. Service IT is a simulation game where you run full service IT company to engage in tasks like diagnosing, repairing equipment, network infiltration, programming, server management, while an anonymous hacker keeps sabotaging it all. I'm not playing that. I refuse. I refuse. That is trauma. We're not playing my we're not playing my work. I don't know, what do you all think? I refuse. I refuse. I mean, I tried to play the this one game that was a computer building game. Where you just like would assemble and clean out computers and fix them up for people. And it was okay, but I had the idea of like, what if I were to play this game until I could have enough money to beat my college debt, right? Well, the game you make so little money for so long that I never got even close to eradicating my college debt, like my IRL college debt. So I gave up. Mm. If you give me a rolling pin, will I forgive you? Maybe. Maybe we'll see. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Need a little more food, one sec. Oh, singing was a lot of fun. I found out what song I'm going to do for my next cover. Thank you for the headbands. I'm going to be doing From the Start. And so, what I'm going to be doing is for this entire week, I'm going to be driving in my car right after a beer. Hey, that bump is shaped like a deer, DUI. Now, how about you die? I drive 100 miles an hour. Mmm. Mmm. No, I'm kidding, but I'm gonna be doing whenever I drive. I'm gonna be singing a song. Hello, Cinna, welcome. Yeah, and then after a week, I'm gonna go back to singing lessons. I will do a trial in the morning. If the guy gives me the okay, then we'll record that one, post it over the weekend, and then I'll start my next song cover. I don't know what the one after that's gonna be, but we'll see. And once I get good at them, then we'll go back to Phantom of the Opera. Mm-mm. Honestly, though, singing lessons have been so fun. I'm glad I can afford to do them right now, and I hope I can continue to afford them in the future. Because there's a whole thing I do. Like right now, we do in warm ups, where he'll like play a piano thingy and then sing some notes, and then I imitate what he does, and then he does it again, and I imitate. And it makes me feel so, so talented. More than I had it before when I get to like imitate him and he does it. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. Exactly, exactly, exactly. Get some sleep, Butterdub. Get some sleep. And a Christmas album. Gibbets, I would love to do a Christmas album. A reminder, we will be opening up mod applications soon. Hmm. Be happening this week. If you want to be a mod, there will be a whole interview and trial process. So, yes. Mm-mm. I'll just do Jay Slat's Christmas album because he won't give me G subs. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna take your money. I'm recording all the same songs you did, Slat. It's my Christmas now. Get wrecked, nerd. Thank you for the link there. No, I'm sorry I had a bad day at work. Well, I did post a little TikTok about making it through to Friday, so feel free to check that one out. Mm-hmm. Bye bye, Dea. I would be amazed if there was a rolling pin emoji. I'm sure there is some cooking streamer out there who has a rolling pin emoji. All I have is a cabbage or a lettuce. I don't know which one it is. Good morning, Sakura. Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to Mashery. ZZ's tired. Oh, look, a strawberry. Oh. I don't know. It says lettuce, but it could be a cabbage. You don't know. You don't know. Wait, is it? What does that say? Oh, sunken engine. I thought I said drunken engine. Wait, what is this? Sunken Engine is a Lovecraftian ship repair simulator. Restore your father's old shipyard. Each arriving ship carries a dark mystery to be solved. Keep your customers satisfied while dealing with strange and eerie happenings on the island. Oh, that sounds actually kind of fun. I wonder. Why did I not hear anything about this? 10,000 copies sold. Why did I not hear anything about this? This seems right up my alley. Right. A lot of good reviews. Is there any negative reviews? Okay, it's way better during demo play. It looks worse. Oh, never mind. They use AI to generate the characters. Ah, come on, people. Come on. Yeah, that's disappointing. That looked like it would have been right up my alley, too. Oh, well. What can you do? How did I get into streaming? Um, Mostly I was just really lonely and I decided to start streaming. And then VTubing specifically, I'd lost my job in the past and I'd always seen VTubers, so I figured I'd try it out. You are new here. Hello, Sakura. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, it doesn't take much to get, like, some decent art. I get you have no money, but then, I don't know. I've seen people do so much with so little that I don't ever see it as an excuse. I'm glad. I'm glad. All right, lovelies. And I'll just do some Minecraft this morning, okay? Mm, yes. Do some chill Minecraft. Throw us into the ASMR section, and we'll craft the mines. I'm ready. It is always nice. It is always nice, especially with everything we're actually building. I was talking to a friend yesterday. Head pats refresh over time. Mm, I feel you, Solar. I feel you. Mm, welcome back from ads. There we go. Okay. Swapping over to game. Where is the There we go. I told y'all that was my favorite. Have I told you about my favorite bit that people do? One of my favorite things that I have seen people do is that I love supporting small content creators and then showing a screenshot of them liking a comment or liking the TikTok or short or whatever. Hmm. Welcome, Batter Donuts. Hope you enjoy your time here. I just think it's so funny. What was I doing here? I feel like there was something specific I wanted to do in this town, but I cannot remember what it was. Mm. mm. Oh, we need to get a map. That's right. I need to upgrade you, meaning I need to make paper. So I guess we're going to be here for a while I make enough paper to satisfy his need. Mm. Because my entire time in playing Minecraft, I've never seen a woodland manor. Yeah, I feel you, Solar. Doom, 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 doom. Let me see. Is that really no sugar cane? They've taken all the sugar cane. There's no more sugar cane. How could they? I like being small. But I will be big one day, and that'll be amazing. Oh, there's sugar cane. No, that's sunflower. I do want sunflowers, though. Let's see. There's sugar cane. Yay. Mm. Mm. Partner streamers are still small. Technically, you cannot really guarantee a career off of streaming unless you've bypassed 300 average viewers. That is the cutoff for a small streamer, though it doesn't feel like that for a lot of people who are below that. But 300 is the cutoff for a career streamer, and it's when you actually start having size. The ghost is trying to hunt down my SO. Oh, well, good luck. Yeah, I know. I know it sounds crazy. It is. But 300, so, well, it's not content creation because I've been like looking at the game for like, the experience of content creation for a long time. Um, there are certain major milestones when it comes to content creation. I mean, of course, you have your starting one of, was it 3 average viewers, 50 followers to get affiliate, 75 average viewers for partnered. But even partner does not really show that a content creator is going anywhere. Because the way partnership works is all you need is 6 average days of 75 average viewers, right? Per month. Now, it's reviewed by real people. So you could have your high could be 75, and then you have a bunch of days of like 20, 10, 20, 30, but you have those 6 days that did really well, or you only stream for 6 days and you hit those 75. But it's because you're doing a partner push. So it's at 300 average viewers, where somebody is hitting the point where just streaming can make enough money to survive. Mm. Like survive well. The next cutoff is at 1,000 viewers. 1,000 viewers is seen as the big next uh, hurdle, because once you pass 1,000 viewers, then you enter the large creator market. And then I guess it'd be like the medium-sized creators market would be about 1,000 average viewers. And once you can break into 10,000, that is the high end. Oh, good morning, Lola. How you doing? And I know it feels like a crazy number. And I don't ever want to hit 10,000 average viewers. I'm not sure I want to ever hit 1,000 average viewers. But it is a thing. And at that point, like when people are getting closer to like the 500s and the thousands, other platforms are starting to pay off for them usually. Mm. 100%. I mean, it's the same thing as like, if you think of it in the terms of a musician, right? Because let's say like 300, you have like 300 fans, or like 300 people come to your big concerts that you do. You're probably starting to make enough money to live, right? Like as a musician. But 300 people in your audience is not enough to guarantee that you're going to have enough TV sales, not TV sales, CD sales, and everything else to make it. Mm-hmm. Once you move up higher numbers, then it's going to be interesting. And that's when you enter like the record label size of people. At like 1,000 is when you probably people start having actual like staff and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's just a very different experience. A very different experience. And genuinely, though, a lot of smaller creators are not very skilled at streaming. And that's some of the times the reasons it's personable is because they're just hanging out with people that aren't really streaming. Mm-hmm. Well, and if you had 300 average viewers, most of those are going to be lurkers. At that point, you're being more of an entertainer. I mean, hey, we've had over 100 in a year before. Quite frequently, we've had over 100. And I'm still able to talk to people pretty well. Oh, well, that's amazing. Tries to get recognized. Mm-mm. Well, that's disappointing, Cinna. I hope they improve. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. All right, there's the sugar cane. I think my goal is to cover this entire beach with sugar cane, and then we'll have enough to get enough paper to satisfy the cartographer and his ever-growing need for paper. And then maybe he'll give me a Woodland Mansion map. Mm. What's up, people? That's what it is. That makes sense. Night night, little alien. You have a good one, okay? One day, one day. Your schedule's just so weird compared to mine. Ooh, yeah, no, that's bad. I've had a few people do stuff like that, so my comments already where I'm just like, I'm gonna ignore this because it makes me uncomfortable. Well, I assume he's making maps. Wait, can I not use bone on these? What's going on? Grow. Oh, well, that's disappointing. Thank you for the lurk, Nap. Good morning, Nap. Because we all live in the valley of the wolf and they... What are we gonna do while I wait? Okay, the other option is getting emeralds, right? So let's see what other jobs people have that I can get emeralds off of. What do you have? You want potatoes? Alright, we'll make a potato farm. I feel like this has suddenly become, like, a village living simulator. I'm gonna build parkour civilization. Well, you should have a favorite Oshi. I should be your favorite Oshi, obviously. If you don't have one, make me your Oshi. Come on, I'm waiting. Oshify me, Captain. Parkour civilization. They're not bad. They're goofy, but you know, they put some effort into them. Guy does all the characters and stuff. I'm kind of impressed by the amount of work he's able to do with them. All right. Maybe I'll make a cult. I'm not gonna make a cult. That'd be crazy. Who would ever want to do that? Anyways. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for the follow. Always greatly, greatly appreciated. I've been thinking about what kind of videos I need to make. I think I need to make something that's gonna hit like that perfect spot between regulars and non-regulars. You know what I mean? Because here's what I'm thinking. I'm trying to think about, like, I had the one video that did amazing, right? And I think it's because it brought up something most people don't know, but still referenced all my stuff. Which was the Oshimark video. We were like, oh, what is this? This is interesting. But it also kept people, like, wanting to check me out because it gave you my personality. And you should have seen that day. Oh, you should have been on my computer that day. I'm sitting here, like, on my computer, and I keep looking to my left, and it's like, you got a new follow. You got a new follow. You got a new follow. I'm like, crazy. Like, every 3 minutes, there'd be a new follow. It was so cool. Good morning, Dazzy. How you doing? Posture check refused. I have no posture. Posture's not real, and you can't convince me otherwise. I'm actually sitting up pretty straight. I am leaning forward, though. Okay. Katamia on shrimp. On pretzel, sorry. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I think it's funny. Everyone has a different perspective of what happened in that TikTok. Some people are like, oh, well, you came and tackled us. Other one was like, oh, yeah, I fell. I never specified. Oh, I'm sorry you have so much work to go. 1, 2, 3, 1. Mm. The one that I did with people, you know, getting taken out to the forest and they tried to run. I need more. Mm. Mm. Yeah. I can't only do the kidnap bit, though. I'll need some more bits to do soon. I'll grow old eventually. I'm having fun with it, though. Mm. Yeah, a lot of people were like, yeah, I ran away and fell. I'm like, haha, I knew it. Goof. There we go. Okay, where is... I guess I'll make a new one. Boop, 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 boop. Boop. Mm-hmm. There we go. Thank you for the lurks, always appreciated. I zoned out there for a bit. How's everybody doing, though? Y'all doing okay? You enjoying your Saturday? Does anybody still do Saturday morning cartoons? Oh, you see, I like that one as well. It just takes so much more effort to do and has so little return. So for those, you have to go through all of your content. You have to find the videos that you want clipped. You have to edit them down to be the right length. And it just is so much effort for a very, very, very little return. Oh, is that so? I don't know where the time went. I feel you, though. Kind of similar. Hmm. Do. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Oh, see, now that's not the problem. These are the top ranked clips. It's not that, like, the fact that, like, the clips themselves are really hard to find. I still have to go through all of the clips, pick out the best ones, cut down to the bits. It is significantly more work. And though that video took me 3 hours to make. That video alone took me 3 hours to make. It's a lot more of like a manual process. While if I do my, just like the bits and the skits and that kind of thing, those take me less than an hour to do. So all I have to do is get in front of a camera, think of a bit, record it, cut down the silence, and that's it. And we're done. Plus, those videos, very specifically, are not good to make. And I like them. But like the reason why they're not good as a content creator to make is because all they do is make people want to see more of the funny moments. So what they want is more of those. They want edited clips and that's it. That gives them no reason to come to a stream or anything. It's interesting the way content creation is now. Spent a lot of time like thinking about it, but I mean back in the day when you could just get on streams and you would play a game everybody like was interested in, is not a way that will actually gain any growth these days. Good morning, Amdus. Good morning, Aaron. Let's see if we can find some potatoes here. Give me your potatoes. Potatoes. We need nothing but potatoes. Potatoes. I guess carrots too. Carrot. Good morning, gold. There we go. Grabbed it. I need to do homework after and prepare for a birthday gift. Ooh, fun. Have fun with whatever birthday it is. Life never ends now. Welcome. I can't believe you're running late. I can't believe you're running late. Rasp, how dare you? I'll arrest you for this later. It's fine. It's fine. No, I'm kidding. How you doing? Welcome to the stream. We're just being very chill this morning. I have a cup of tea and a biscuit. Oh, I love tea. I love tea. I'm very disappointed. I don't think I even have any tea right now. I can't believe I have no tea. There's not a single tea in my entire place right now. 2, 3, 4. Lube? No. It knows how height deficient it is. The bread needs to be reminded of its small stature, so that it can one day learn how to grow properly. It is tea season. You right. A little disappointing I don't have any. Sorry I let you down like that. I hope you'll forgive me. Won't tax it much. Wow. Carmia trying to bring back colonialism. Insane. It's insane, the membrane. It's crazy insane. Got no brain. King George. Even King George this entire time. Colonialism. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for the check-in, Sylvie Bay. Welcome. Alright, we're gonna do this. Gonna be here for a while, so let's actually unpack a little bit. There's a new hoe. Yo, I got my hoes in a row. Sorry. Kink George, the revenge of Kinky George. That's why they left. That's why we had to have colonialism, or the anti-colonialism. We had to become a republic because of Kinky George. And beware the King of George. Oh, that's so funny. You know, you can tell something's funny when somebody goes, that's so funny. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. There we go. I kind of want to go learn about Victorian kinks now. Surely the laughing is the biggest cue? Nah. A good joke is what they have to explain to somebody, and they have to say, that's funny. If they laugh, it might be a pity laugh. You don't know. I always think about this thing from the Game Grumps where they go, You can tell like Aaron is trying to make a joke about something, and Dan is just so not like paying attention. And Aaron tells this joke, and it's dead silent. And he goes, "Come on, at least pity laugh." And then Dan goes like, he remembers what he was trying to think of the entire time. I can't remember what he says. I cannot remember what he says. But he's like it's this thing. And he's like, "Please pity laugh." What? I just think it's funny. Anyways, I know a bit is really funny when I can explain it to everybody, but I don't actually remember the entirety of it. I don't think public executions were a Victorian kink per se. I might be wrong, but I mean, yeah. Oh, right. Hi, Keisha. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Did it take you a while to find my Twitch? Why did it take you so long to find my Twitch? Explain that to me. What were you doing instead, huh? Too busy? Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the menagerie. Gene bullying newcomers today, of course. You saw my TikToks where I talk about being a streamer and you never thought to come. Wow. So rude. I can't believe you. It's okay. You can make it up to me. You'll just stay in my basement long enough and eventually make it up to me. Mm-hmm. I guess I need to do a TikTok being like, hey, some of you don't realize that I'm a streamer. Homies. Or I need to not say I'm a streamer, but say I'm a streamer. Did you know that live streamers exist? And some of them, it might be closer to you than you think. No, you're fine. It is a valid point, though. I was thinking about it today, being like, what would make it happen more? Mm-hmm. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh yeah, YouTube, Instagram. I'm on all of them. If anybody confused by what I'm doing, I am trying to satisfy a farmer's need for potatoes and carrots so that I can get emeralds, so that I can satisfy a cartographer's need for emeralds and paper, so I can finally get a woodland mansion thing. So we might be here for a while. While I just farm. It's me, I'm in your basement. Some streamers are closer than you think, some are right behind you. Who said I radiate tall energy, by the way? I appreciate that. Everyone says I radiate short energy. I'm like, come on, guys. Oh, what do you mean? I'm so tall, I swear. I love TikTok. Mmm. Chihuahua. Rude. I'm so tall, guys. I am 6'4", exactly, unless I've shrunk an inch, in which case I'd be 6'3". Who's coming around stealing my height? Is there a height thief out there that I gotta be worried about? Thank you for the follow, Alley Bear, by the way, and thank you for the follow, Kijo. Welcome to the menagerie. Can you get out of my bed, man? I shrink in the wash. Don't wash me. Did you sleep with me? Don't you be happy dancing away. What happened? You slowly lower my chair while I'm not looking. That's funny. Potatoes. Carrots. And there we go. I just don't have any validation. It's not that I'm short. I just need more validation is all. Boom, 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 boom. Wow. 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 Da, da, da. So rude and mean and awful to me. Alright, let's go get some more stone. Get him, dwarf. Rude. Oh. I am your car. Does that mean you were, I'm not gonna need that statement I was about to make. Wise me never. Enjoy your sleep, Cinna. Don't bite my ankles. Okay, let's see. This feels goofy. Oh, hello, cartographer. Don't worry, I'm working on getting you paper. Ooh, thank you so much for the redeem. I would, Tall. Don't take my ankles. I need those. I need those for crime. It's all crimes. I steal things from high shelves. That's okay. You don't need grammar. Not here. We have the grammar police. One, two, 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 two. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I did lose my glasses because I hung them on top of a door. It just felt like, I mean, okay, look, it makes sense, okay? Like, it's out of the way, off the ground, not on like a cabinet where I'm gonna lose it, so it's like visually seeable. So it just was like one of the most convenient places for me to put my glasses. Oh, well, but I don't close that door. There's no what if, I just don't close that door. Yeah, they're prescription. But I don't close that door. I know, but no, it doesn't matter if I know they're up there or not. I don't close that door. That door just doesn't get closed. Do you not have doors in your house that just never close? That you just don't ever close? Or your apartment or wherever you live? I live in an apartment. No, fair enough. Oh, you can't get out of the basement. You're a normal person? I thought I was normal. It doesn't have a front door? How do you get in? Is it just walls? That sounds incredible. You just have to phase through the walls. There you go. See, that works. You took door down. Amazing. I like the option of closing door, even if I don't want to close door. Hmm. All you think about is Billy, like, and that's crazy. Just like randomly you wake up in the middle of the night, Billie Jean, Billie Jean. Where's Billie Jean? I know. I think it'd just be funny if you're just dreaming about the song Billie Jean in the middle of the night. Mm. Bloop. Billie Jean is not my lover. She's just a kid. Thinks that I am the one. Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba. Oh, we've already cleared this place out. Never mind. Oh, hey, look, another one. I also like Pink Boat. Is that another one? What is that? Oh, it's a gay. Ooh. Hello, gay boy. Let's see what we have there, gate boy. Mm. No, dude. Nice. Rasp. No, I'm sorry you're not getting any sleep. I hope you sleep well. I can get some sleep another time then. Hmm. It's chili season, chat. We're going to Chili's. Everybody, put on your nice shoes. We're gonna go to Chili's. I like digging. I'm an orphan, I'm digging, oh. Hi, Sarah. Diggy, diggy, oh. Diggy, diggy, oh. Wait. Wait. Mm, mm. Well, no, the compass only gets me back to my home, but I was making a potato farm. So, wait, how? How? I went in like a straight line. And I lost the map, man. There's a beach completely covered in sugarcane. Where's my beach? There it is. Okay. There we go. Thank you for the stretch. Good morning, Pink. Yes, please make Lost Dogpa. I would love to see that. Where's Nap? That's what's happening. I'm actually shifting the world. Stop hurting me. Stop hitting me. Thank you. Hi, lady. Gotta see. I don't moan, I just make stretching noises. Not my fault y'all sexualize it. It's a creeper. How have I been? I've been pretty well. Exactly, the groans. The groans, not moans. They're very different. Mm. Exactly. You might not believe me if I don't make noises. Legally obligated. Yeah, Karamia, Unpretzel, stop sitting on your foot again. You just put that foot down. Why did you put it back underneath you? Dang, I was hoping I got you. What have you been goddessy? Hmm. I need to grow some melons. It is true. That is a thing that does exist. Melons. Wait, yeah. Better idea. What if I do this? Let me do this. Do a little bit of this. Da-da, da-da, da, da, da-da, da. Da, da, da. Mm. Yeah, should I start? Should we go through my different noises I can make, and that way we can identify which ones are moans and which ones are groans. mm. Snap my spine like a glow stick. Do it. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna make noises. We're not making a cheat noise tier list. Yeah, I might get reported for if I make those kind of noises. Twitch is gonna be like, "I'm sorry. What? What are you doing? Why are you doing this, sir?" No. Tease me never. I used to be big into Magic. But then the internet became more prevalent. I liked playing Magic when people focused on booster packs. It's so much fun to like try to make decks from the stuff you find and you get a lot of luck. I've never been a big fan of like people just finding the perfect deck online and rebuilding it. My least favorite, I had a guy in college who would he would find like tournament decks people like pros used. Then he just rebuild them. And I'm just like, well, this is something that you came up with. I don't get to see your strategy. I just get to see you finding a pro and copying them. That doesn't make you good at the game. Because he's just copying somebody else. And you'd only play like the most stuff. Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I like when people do strategy. That's why I liked playing draft. If you don't know what draft is, you go to a card shop. They open up a brand new like box of magic cards, and you pass around the packs of cards. Everybody gets a pack, and they get to open it up. You get to pick one card from the pack, and you pass the pack to your left, and then you get to pick a card from that pack. And then at the end, you have enough to make it like a small deck, and you play against the other players there. And whoever wins is usually then like gets another box of cards. Exactly. And for some people, that's just how they, it's how they get their victories. It is. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, that's fair. Cards are pretty. Thank you for the follow, Roma. Welcome to the menagerie. I'm such a good donkey. Oh, yeah. I mean, if you want to play Magic, you can also play it on your phone. Maybe I'll eventually play it and we can play against some people here in stream. That would be a sponsor. Imagine me getting sponsored by Magic. I play my dumb angel deck. Ugh, I love my stupid angel deck. For those of you who don't know, white cards, which is one of the land types you can have. Cards come in different land types. White cards have a lot to do with like summoning tokens, which are easy to like pull out cards. Like they make cards basically, and healing. And so I had a deck that was all about like healing myself a bunch. So within a few turns, I would have like 300 uh, health points. I guess what you would call it. And mind you, in Magic, you start with 20. And so people couldn't kill me. Oh, God, I hate counter decks. You and people, their counters. I know, right? That's right, chat. From now on, I'm not playing any game unless I'm sponsored. So you can sponsor me if you want me to play a game of your choice. Uh-huh. That or mill decks. Another deck that exists in Magic is one of the least favorite decks of all time, called a mill deck. To explain to you what milling is, okay, you have your deck of cards. You have the deck of cards, you have your hand where your cards are supposed to go, and you have a graveyard where cards go when they die. Milling is when you take the card from your deck and you put it straight into your graveyard. There is a type of blue deck. That's all it does. All you do is mill. And so the person on the other side is just making you get rid of all your cards, because once you're out of cards, if you can't draw any more cards, you lose the game. And it's one of the most frustrating things to see all these cards that you could have played, that you could have done amazing with, just gone. That's true, Casey. And I also like the reason why I wouldn't do that. Because I feel like people would be upset if they, like, paid for me to play a game, and then I hated it, and I refused to play it more than 5 minutes. Sir, we're not sleeping together. Get out of my bed. Oh, the fun is being the blue player, seeing the person have all these planned, like, skills and strategies just go out the window. Because people forget to prepare for that. I mean, usually, that's why, like, in most decks, like, if you make a really good versatile deck, you either want a deck that can go off really quickly, and that way you can get to your win condition faster, or you want a deck that is going to be more well-rounded and can stop the mill from happening immediately. Like, there's cards that then play exclusively from the graveyard, which this wouldn't really affect unless they can't get the card to allow that. And there's decks that are just so fast and they ramp so quickly that doesn't matter, or they'll have so much backup stuff that it doesn't matter either. Every style of deck has its own way of winning the game. Thank you for that, Pets. Stop the mill. Stop the MILF. Yes, chat. Stop the MILF from happening. I'm kidding. We need more MILFs. Make the MILF happen. I did. I had a bowl of warm raviolis for breakfast. The MILFening. Carmea, thank you for your service. Yes, exactly. Have you had your meds? Have you eaten properly? Have you had all your good foods? Oh yeah, no, I've noticed that. And vitamin gummies. Have you seen vitamin gummies? Like how low they are in nutrient value. I got a multivitamin today. That was in a pill form, and holy crap, it had so many vitamins in it. I'm like, really? No, it does not. Eat some food, dwarf. Yeah, I mean, because, like, it's really hard to kind of get it in the right formula. It's blended up, but you can't really put any heat to properly mix things, so it's just kind of, you know. And yeah, the content's not that heavy. Like, you need a lot more nutrients. You need a lot more gummies to equate one pill. It's no. I think coming up with a unique username is easy. Oh, I just dry swallow all my pills. I've always dry swallowed all my pills. Well, I mean, if you don't brush your teeth properly, brush your teeth after you eat the gummies, you'll be fine. Oh, that's what your name means. I just throw random stuff together. I mean, I have my sources, but I've had a bajillion different names. I used to be Vampire Prince 13 when I was a young teen. Vampire Prince 13. Or Doomblade 21. That was my old RuneScape account that got stolen. Back when I didn't understand what I was doing in RuneScape. It was so, hi Neeks. It was so stupid too. I got taken by one of those scams. Here's the classic one that I'm not sure if all of you have heard of. It goes, did you know that if you post your password, the gaming company will censor out your password? See, here's how I did it. And I did it. Don't, no, do not call me no. We are not starting, that's not becoming a thing. Vampire Prince. You know what the thing is though? Like, I didn't believe him either. I just kind of like ran across the map, and I thought I was far enough that he wouldn't see it, but I think somebody else saw me do it, and they took my password. And the worst part is, like, I didn't even have a character that was really good because I didn't understand how to play the game at the time. And so, like, I only used the one attack that I liked, but the one attack that I like didn't allow you to build the stats to wield other weapons. So I just had a really, really strong one attack. Soft kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur. Happy kitty, sleepy kitty, purr, purr, purr. Thank you for the follow, Moon Kitty. We summoned a kitty, look at that. Soft kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur. Happy kitty, sleepy kitty, purr, purr, purr. You're not summonable? I summon Moongit. Arise. Hello, turtles. Hey, it's Vanya. Hi, Vanya. Into the ocean you go. You can stay. This is also Vanya. They're all Vanya. So many Vanyas. Hello, Vanya. Happy time zones. Mm-mm. That's valid. That's valid. Time zone. Time zone's your favorite holiday. Soon we will outline the entire beach in sugarcane. I'm so glad this game doesn't care about like nutrient levels in the soil because I'm pretty sure this would probably sap all the nutrients. Mm-hmm. Ba ba ba. Don't nibble my potato. I need my potatoes. We're still attacking volcanoes? Not a plan on attacking a volcano. I'm I'm a banana, I'm a banana, I'm a banana. Look at me move. Yep, we are trying to get a map. I've also always tried to make a automatic farm, but it's hard to make them. I know, right? Cozy vibes. And I only leave you locked up while I'm gone and prevent you from having any other company or interaction, like a normal healthy relationship would. Red flag, I don't know what those are. I only wear rose-tinted glasses. No. Hi, Nap. Missed you, Nap. Yeah, banana, your potassium's increasing. Yay. I have banana. I should eat banana. It's banana time. Get out of my bed. We're not sleeping together. Leave. Leave. This is my. Leave. Why must you try to sleep with me? It's banana time. Fine, go water your cat. Don't you give me those eyebrows. Shut up and sleep with me. Come on, why don't you sleep with me? Shut up and sleep with me. Come on, why don't you sleep with me? Shut up, sleep with me. Come on, why don't you? Nobody probably knows this song. You're young, you're free. Why don't you sleep with me? You're young, you're free. This is Sin with Sebastian. Why won't you sleep with me? That's gonna be stuck in my head all day. Shut up and sleep with me. Come on, why don't I miss those days, man? Those were the good days of memes where people were making like these crazy songs and they just made it. Now people just throw stuff in AI and they're like, yep, done. Back in my day. Womp 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 womp. Back in the good old days when people still made homegrown memes. I was also obsessed with that song. Bloop. I ain't old chat. You ain't old until when you're doinking your bones sound like an old barn door. Sleep with me, come on, why don't you sleep with me, ha? I'm sorry, what did you call me? Don't you dare call me vampire. I refuse. Denied. I believe I am 3 billion years old. Explodes into dust. Vampire princess. Sure, I'll be a vampire princess. So, Carmia, what's your power level like? Carmia, what's your power level? Mm. Do you want to know why that came to my head? Give me a second. Oh no, wait a second. Wait a second. Ah, I found it. You ready for this? Hey, we're gonna take a little screenshot real quick. There's Vampire Prince 13. Guy online. Right. You'd be surprised. I think that character might actually be worth a lot of money. Oh, I played a lot of Guy Online. I roleplayed in Guy Online. Some of my early girlfriends, actually. Yeah. It's funny, every once in a while I'd leave the game and I'd come back and one of my items would be worth more, so I'd sell it and I'd leave again. XX Dark Lord. Amazing. I wish I'd brought something of the cocoa bean. I could have made so much stuff here. Is there a jungle nearby? Yeah, I'm too sleepy for chaos. Don't say that like this is a job. You got the easy shift. Wow. I feel the love today. Good morning, Walshy, and good morning, Lunar. Yeah, I feel that. Groceries are so expensive. What do you mean? I'm always cute. I'm always cute. What do you mean? What do you mean cute, Gene? Mm. 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 I'm not a liar. Mm. Manageable. Debatable. I think one of my favorite things is that all they have to do is wear a helmet and they're considered covered. Da, da, da. Thank you. That was for Red Faye. Mm. You're welcome. Technically, I'm a human. I'm a human. I am human. Human. Mm. I'm such a good doggy, according to Crucy. Oh. Banana. Do you love me, bananas? Did you know that bananas are berries? Oh, God, we're going to do this voice now. Okay, so here we go. We have this voice for this morning. Yes. Did you know that bananas are berries, though? It's such an interesting thing. They're radioactive berries. Honestly, I wonder if all berries are radioactive. Anybody ever check to see how radioactive a strawberry is? Wait, it's potassium that's radioactive, isn't it? They're like, are coconuts radioactive too? Why do we never think about how radioactive coconuts could be? Yeah, though are the coconuts that are radioactive too?
Berry thin cream. Berry thin cream. I'm a little boy who likes berry thin cream. Mm. Carmi has such a big brain. Chad, do you see how big Carmi's brain is? It's like massive. Honestly, it's kind of impressive. In theory, coconut water could replace blood for vampires. I'm so excited. I'm gonna replace all my blood with coconut water. They're gonna be like, Gene, why are you dead? And I'll be like, because I'm dead, and all my blood will be coconut water. It's true facts. True facts. Of a girl got that curvy brain. You're so skib. I'm super certain you are very skib. Super duper. I want to listen to MF Doom. Chad, is it too early to listen to MF Doom? Yeah, it's probably too early to listen to MF Doom. I had the greatest idea just now. What if I make sleepy versions of all my favorite songs so that I can play them in our morning streams? Imagine. You just hear me in the background rapping, but it's super soft and relaxing. Yeah, exactly. I'll see if I can hire somebody to do lo-fi beat covers of my favorite rap songs. That'd be so stupid. MF Doom though, it's great, so it'd be worth it. And Aesop Rock. And do a little diggy. Oh, good morning, Beamy. How are you doing this morning? We're stuck in this voice for a little while. Gotta love how unstable potassium is. Gotta love how unstable I am. Alright, I can stop that voice. And there we go. You know what's really unstable? Cesium. Cesium is great. It explodes. I'm radioactive. I'm radioactive. I'm a banana. I'm radioactive. I have just discovered the greatest thing in the world, chat. It turns out that Imagine Dragons are actually bananas. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Imagine Dragons has been bananas this whole time. If your stream is lagging, you can refresh the stream at any point and should catch back up. If I die and go to hell real soon, it would appear to me as this room. And for eternity I'd lay in bed in my boxes half stone, the pillow under my head. I'd be chatting on the interwebs. Maggots prey upon the living dead. I had no interest in the things she said. Got her on the phone and she touched herself. Touched herself, she touched herself. Got her on the phone and she touched herself. I laughed myself to sleep. At this rate, I'll be heading for electric chairs. Only human as my cross there. Got me goofy. when she described coming less defined as days come by, fading away, and well, you might say I'm losing my focus, kinda drifting into the abstract in terms of how I see myself. Sometimes I think I can see right through myself. Sometimes I think I can think right through myself. Sometimes I feel like I can see right through myself. Less concerned with fitting into your world that is, 'cause it doesn't even matter anymore. Morning, lovely Bunky. Morning, morning, morning. That was only. I need your discipline. That's what I want to sing right now. Give me a second. I need to look at the lyrics. Thank you for the stretch. Am I still tough enough? Feels like I'm wearing down, 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 down. Is my viciousness losing ground, 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 ground? Am I talking too much? Cheers. Big cup. Did I cross the line? Maybe a little bit. You know, this very clearly defined. Bye-bye. I need your discipline. I need your help. I need your discipline. 'Cause once I stop, I cannot help myself. And now it's starting up. Feels like I'm losing touch. Nothing matters to me. Nothing matters this much. I see you left a mark. Up and down my skin, 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 skin. I don't know where I end and where you begin. Thank you for the luck. No, we're not there yet. We're getting close, though. We're getting close. You don't know that. Morning, princess. Oh, honey, you're home. Not even gonna talk to me? Had a long day at work and you're just gonna go straight to bed? Crazy. You sleep standing again. On top of me, apparently. I Celia. Go, go, go. I do not know any. Who is it? How is it? Fine, I guess I live with this man now. I'll build us a new house. I mean, it's working. I guess apparently consistency is all it takes for me. I could say the most parasocial thing in my entire life right now. I could say the most parasocial thing in my entire life right now. No. No, I won't. I just be thinking like, consistency is all it takes. No, but it's not true. I need a lot more from that, and I'm probably not going to date for a year, at least.
My focus is going to be content creation and my own health and growth. You know what I want to do today? You know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to go to the used bookstore. I'm going to see if I can find some poetry. I'm going to buy a bunch of random poetry books, and we're going to start reading those a little bit in the morning. Good morning, welcome, Doggy Upper. I hope you enjoy your time here. And I can start doing the nighttime streams. I don't know, something feels good right now. I feel like I'm mentally in a better place right now than I was yesterday. I guess I should also build my bookshelf, shouldn't I? There we go, let's just do this. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Bye, Azalea. Sleep well. Been a little while. It's good to see you. I'm glad to see that you're doing okay. I'm sorry, I'm just really goofy today. Today feels like a good goofy day. Thank you for the follow, Emma. Welcome. I need your discipline, 'cause once I start, cannot help myself. Azalea, you come when you can. Never feel like this is an obligation. I would hate people to come just because they feel like they have to. I'm an entertainer. I'm a free entertainer. You wouldn't go see a comedian unless you want to laugh. You all owe me nothing. I hope you know that. You owe nobody online anything. Well, I mean, the mods are an exception, but you know. Hey, wait. Hey, wait. No, this stream would die without its mods. And do not forget that if you are on iPhone, you need to turn on 18 plus things. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Absolutely drives you. By the way, hello Emma. Thank you for the follow. Greatly appreciate it. Welcome to the menagerie. Oh god, I'm glad you like being here. And even the mods, I guess. Even the mods, I guess. If they don't want to be here, they don't have to be. Make me a little sad, but that's okay. I'm allowed to be a little sad sometimes. Why are we setting things on fire? No, no, dude, we don't need arson. Why are we setting things... Turn away for 1 second and y'all are arsoning again. Really? Really? Hannah's cold? You're gonna set gibbets on fire again. Thank you for the follow, all for Gojo. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Y'all are scaring gibbets. Be careful. Gibbets isn't fireproof. We found this out. I'm glad. Thank you. Oh, I have a funny idea. Give me a second. Y'all can hear the music, right? And the little bit of rain. There you go. Go to sleep, my sweet boy. You need it. There you go. You see, that sounds like a you problem. I'm sure it's fine. The void will protect us. Fair. I mean, it also might eat you, but you know, same thing. Sleep well. You're right. I won't let you die from smoke inhalation. Not yet. Jeez, you're so needy. Sleep well, Rasp. Thank you for coming by. Y'all in your need for oxygen, wild. Honestly. Oh, those might be the fake ones that I bought online. I thought they were funny. I'm sure they're fine though. Come with me and you'll see a land of pure imagination. Come here, cow. I will breed you so you can make me leather. I hope it was silly, wasn't it? Oh, come on, cow. This stupid sheep got in my way. Come on. In here, in here. I swear, this sheep is driving me insane. Y'all better not complain when I kill it.
La vaca, moo. La vaca. Yep. Leave. You're told you're reaching new heights. What did you do? Get a step stool? I'm funny. Neek started a fire. Yeah. I know, you'll just stand in my way and I'm gonna trip over you anyways. It's be like, oh, hey, look, where's Neeks? Then I'll just fall. We already said that. I know you're short. I won't see you coming. Let's do those kneecaps. See, the thing about people being short is you also can't hear their footsteps. They're just so small and high pitched. Neeks could stand in the snow and probably wouldn't sink in it. I'm not afraid of your turkey baster. I don't know if there's much more you can carry. Be like throwing a thimble of water at me. Anyways, I'll stop bullying. Sorry, sometimes every once in a while something in my brain triggers and it's just like, here we go. Alright. Telling through the snow like a ferret. Oh, that's the farmer. Where's my cartographer? Cartographer. Wait, where's my cartographer? Where is my cartographer? Who stole my cartographer? Did my cartographer change jobs? Come on. Why did you become a farmer? He had to get a second job. So I had to take away his job opportunity. Alright.
No, 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 no. Don't you get clever now. Come on, come on. Paper, get in there. Good boy. Stop being clever. Get down. I get gummies. Yay, gummies. You live here now. Stay. Good boy. Oh, who's a good villager? Okay. I kind of want to go find iron so I can make bars. So I can make copper bars. I can make copper bars. And make me some breakfast too, sweetie. Egg. All right. Mm-hmm. I don't double park intentionally. What do you mean I don't get any food? Why don't I get any food? I deserve food. Hmm. 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 I don't want to starve. We should do a confession stream where everybody can anonymously confess to things, then I have to read them and judge you for your sins. I think that would be fun. I do feed off of attention. Needs more. Give me more. Good soup. Your sin of sloth. You're so slothful. Me. I just like going to the Amazonian rainforest and finding a bunch of sloths and accusing them of committing sins. And then I punish them by sending them to... Anyways. Enjoy the lurkies. Herky durky durky villainy. I would never commit crime. Ever, 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 ever. I would also never lie. Lying is my least favorite pastime. And it makes me smell like chocolate, so honestly, it's probably not the best idea that I ever lie.
Tell your dogs I say ruff, 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 ruff. They'll know what it means. Thank you for stretching the hydrate. Oh, that's fun. But make sure you do capitalization. Capitalize the P and the C. That way it's easier to read for streamers like me. Oh, Maggie. No? Oof. Okay, I need my copper. Good choice, good choice. Poison. Poison. Do not worry about your brethren. They are fine. I'm such a good doggy. There you go. Not a dog. Where is all the stone? What? There it is. Yoink. It's true. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the menagerie. What if I did a streamer date for 1 million points? You think anybody would save up for it? It'd be on stream. It'd be an on stream thing. Oh, yeah, I need that. Where is it? That's what I needed. Maybe. I don't know what a date with Markiplier is like. I've been on a date with Markiplier. Not for lack of trying. I should go on a date with Markiplier. I mean, Markiplier just got married, and I don't think they're polyamorous. Have you ever been to space with Markiplier? No, he's never invited me. I'm not a big enough content creator yet. You found Cure Goblin Boy? You've been to space with Markiplier? What the heck, yeah? Oh, you found a goblin boy? I mean, I guess I know what you're into now. Interesting things to be looking up in your free time, but I suppose I can't manage all of your time. As long as you're not doing it on the clock. I'm sorry, Neeks. I've just chosen violence against you today. I don't know what you did, but you did something. This is punishment for whatever sin that I can make up later. Alright. Hmm. Hmm. Stop. Why are you all licking? Why do you lick again? Put those tongues away. You don't need to pull out your tongues all the time. Each other, apparently. You're getting all slobbery and gross. Oh, what cute goblin guy did you find? Hmm. Oh, are they like a streamer or something? Or is this like a character from something? Small VTuber. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Are you talking about like me small, or are we talking about like small, small? Mm, gotcha. Maybe we can be friends, and then I'll make out. Oh, so you all saw Rat Cousin yesterday, right? What do you think of Rat Cousin? Do you like the stream? Wasn't it goofy and crazy and amazing? Do you want to know how he does it? Here's how he does it. So, okay, so this is it's really cool actually. First off, his stream is run through a game engine, so it is like a virtual game that he has set up. He has different interfaces of stuff that, like, oh, do we get a follow? Hey, thank you, Aaron, for the follow. He has different like interfaces and stuff, and some of the characters in there are chatbots that he's programmed to interact with his stream. So when he talks to them, they'll talk back. One of the favorite ones that he has that I like is the word in the hole, and it'll talk to the world in the hole, and it'll pick the word of the day, but it just makes up words, and it's so funny. It is so funny. And so I followed him on Twitter and DM'd him. I'm like, hey, yo, how do you do all this stuff? It's so cool. And we're friends on, not Twitter, on TikTok. And so after stream, I was like, hey, man, amazing stream. And he goes, yeah, thank you so much for coming by for the support. If you ever want to do anything together, like, hit me up. And I'm like, most definitely. I have no clue what we would do, but I would love to do something with you. There's no way word of the year is 6-7. That's not a word. Hello, Mini Whale. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Mini Whale. Hello, little Mini Whale. Come here. You get to sit on my lap. I want to hold a little Mini Whale. That sounds adorable. As long as you can breathe air. Can Mini Whale breathe air? That's important to me. We do not want to suffocate a Mini Whale. And the word of the whole is phenomenally for the love of the. I know, but like, can they live on land or are they going to die? Wait, does that mean that when a whale gets beached, it like starves to death? Or dies of exposure? No, they need to be wet. Me too. Sorry. How are you? I'm doing good. I'm doing good, Minnie Whale. How are you? Oh, it probably would suffocate, wouldn't it? Nay for the headbands. Evolve. Yeah, but if I stand inside of a whale's heart, it's probably not a good thing. How, just in general? Hmm. Swim through the arteries. And then he gets stuck and give a whale a heart attack. You know, I never saw that Magic School Bus episode, but it probably exists. I'm sorry, Minnie Whale, that we're talking such violence against whales. It was not intended. Mm. When the Magic School Bus returns, that's insane. Oh, nice. I'm not reading that name out loud. But thank you for the follow. Welcome to the menagerie. Carmia. You goof. No, I decided I actually want to try to beat the game this time. And I want to go see a mansion. Hmm. Hi, Hattie. Alright, I was making copper bars so I can make bars so that I can lock this man in a cage. So he's my permanent cage cartographer. Yes. Bars. Bars on bars. All these hearts. Thank you for the check-in. Mm. I don't have abandonment issues. You have abandonment issues. Fight me. Enjoy your eats. Sleep well. Mm-hmm. Not loud, sorry.
I forbid that. I forbid it. This is what you get for trying to go off and be a farmer. Locked in cage. Mm. Mm. There we go. Enjoy your breakfast. Break that fast. Me. That's not what I wanted to do. Why are you not working like I want you to work? Gib. I do this. This. I have an idea, but I don't know how it would look. Not eat any aluminium. Why would I not eat aluminium? How dare you? Come here, boy. Here, boy. Oh, a Savannah Village map. That's interesting. Oh, thank you for the hydrate. Cheers. Fine, we'll use the big cup. You ready? There we go. Welcome. I can't wait till I can lift it with one hand. No, I asked if they're ready to hear me lift up my big cup because the big cup is heavy. Carmia. Not that weird. You better be. Milk. Hello, milk. Now let me build my prison in peace. Thank you for the new follow. Welcome, 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 welcome to the menagerie. There we go. What are you doing? Go back. Go back. What are you... I thought. Thank you. Can we have outside time? You may not. Hello, Fan Kumiko. How you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome to the menagerie. No, cup is massive. It is 25 pounds. It might be heavier than that. It's very heavy. Yes. Yes, it's a 25-pound cup.
because I thought it would be funny. And it is. I mean, it is when it's just a solid, dense cup with a handle. It's difficult to lift. Especially when you have to hold it steady to drink from it. Mm. Trying to stabilize it from a single handle is... Not really. It's like a massive thing in the center with like a small stop. It's almost like the size of not a normal cup, but a little bit bigger than a normal cup. It's weighted very, very poorly. Beer steins are weighted a bit better. Because they actually want you to drink from them successfully. There you go. I'm hiding deep in your closet. You can't get me out. Sorry. I live here now. Give me more stone, give me more stone, give me more. Throw it back in a circle. You want to throw that thing back in an equilateral triangle. I never see anybody throw it back like me. I don't think so, no. Yeah. I have come to trade. Yeah. Chat is funny. Chat is cute. Chat are a bunch of dorks. Chat, what's your favorite thing about me? I need attention. Give me, give me validation. Okay, wow. Immediately failed the point. And what? No, ban nap. Ban nap. Nap is banned. My sass. I've never been sassy in my entire life. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, really? The whiny voice? Gonna make me do that this early in the morning? Why would you do that? Why would you make me do this voice? Thank you so much for the follow and the head pats, by the way. I can't believe you're making me do this. Why are you so mean to me? There we go. I have finished his cage, so he'll never escape. Oh, there we go. Enjoy your cage. Mm-mm. Good, that's good validation. What's your favorite thing, Carmia? Carmia. And we're done with the voice. Yay, it's over. Much of a nerd I am. Crazy wild statement. How dare you? Mm. Mm-hmm. I am amazing. I am wonderful. I deserve all sunshine and happiness because that is what I'm worth. And if I pick on Neeks again, she can take my kneecaps. She can try, but she will fail. I gotta get close to me when my legs are the size of your body. You're always in punting distance. Oh, sorry. I might have ad-libbed a little bit. Curdling distance. I mean, everybody's in curdling distance. All I gotta do is add vinegar. Separate that way. Did I tell you I made cheese the other day? I made like a cottage farm cheese. Look at what you made me do. Yeah, I intentionally made cheese. Because I had milk that was getting close to bad, so I just made it into cheese. Skim. Skibbity, skibbity, skim. Mm. Oh, yeah, you just, you take milk, you add vinegar or something to curdle it, you, add a little salt, you boil it for a while until the, curds and whey separate. Once that is done, you take that and you put it in through something like a cheesecloth or a cotton shirt or something. You drain the liquid, press it, let it sit, and then you have like a simple like farm cheese. Mm. Alright, here we are now. Back in that southern again. Whether the weather is cold, whether the weather is hot, we'll weather the weather, whatever the weather, whether we like it or not. That one was fun. Let's do that one again. Whether the weather is cold, whether the weather is hot, we'll weather the weather, whatever the weather, whether we like it or not. Oh, bother. Owie zowie. Oh, that's very sweet. I hope he's doing alright. I mean, let's drop it back in the throat a bit. There we are. This one we can hold up a little bit longer. Mmm. Whether the weather is cold, whether the weather is hot, we'll weather the weather, whatever the weather, whether we like it or not. That one's fun. I even have it memorized now. I am satisfied. Oh, Dean's gonna let you be mean to me. That's crazy. That's what I would be doing too if I was in a wheelchair, running people over as best I could. What are you doing over here? What are you doing over here? You ain't touching my potatoes. What are you taking my seeds? What are you doing? Hey, 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 hey. Them's my seeds. Stop trying to take my seed. I'm considering murdering you. You're quite lucky I don't really want to kill you yet. Yeah, but he's keeping it for himself. Dang. That's what I've been practicing. That's my false chords. As going by, the false chords just. Oh, hi, Nia. How you doing, sweetie? You don't gotta be lonely with farmersonly.com. I've taken one lesson, yeah, but I'm also doing normal singing as well. I like my big old farm. Look at my big old farm. Jeans Pizza. Thank you for noticing my carrots. Ain't they beautiful? It's funny practicing doing any of my vocal fry techniques. I'll sit around and just go like A-E-I-O-U. Then you're fine, girlie. You're allowed to sleep. Oh, I'll read poetry in the voice. Just a little grrr. It's great. A lot of fun. I just zoned out. I just zoned out so hard. Hello, Road Pirate Slow. Welcome, welcome to the menagerie. You look so fluffy. Right now? Oh. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep, then close your eyes and go back to sleep. Oh, Poison, do you go by Flora? Interesting. Did not know that. I know. I love me my sticks. Nah, come here. Oh, interesting. I ain't raid many of them. Probably should. There we are. 16. What's reading? I don't know how to read. I've never read one. I mean, do you know a dog that can? Hey, B. B. We can be bees. Mark, we can be bees. Mark, we can be bees. We could live 6 years. We could be bees, Mark. What's it called? The campfire? Or do I need to make like a? 1 second, I need to look something up. Oh, that's what I need. All right, this gives me some logs. Give it to me. There it is. Thank you. Camp. All right, now apparently, I think you put this underneath here. Yes. All right. All right. What happened to my shoes? Shoes. Oh, iron. Can I use that iron? Don't need that. Dang. Wait, this makes sense. Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's what I wanted. There it is. Okay. I found my shoes. Anyways. There we are. Beehive. Oh, beehive. Apparently, I think men don't think you're funny. Wait, you think men don't think I'm funny? Yeah. Why do you think men don't think I'm funny? That's such a weird thing. Why specifically do you think that you think what? I'm so confused. So Addie doesn't think I'm funny, is what you're telling me. Got it. I'll keep that as a note for the future. Wow. Why do you hate me? Why would you say that to my face? They just don't think I'm funny. I'm not funny. Oh. Oh. Okay. I mean, that's. Yeah, okay. I guess it's alright. I don't need to be funny for everybody. No, it's fine. I get it. I just. It's fine. Why do you hate me so much? I try so hard. I'm just not entertaining enough for you, I know. I'm sorry. I'll try harder. Hmm. Who says I? No, that's not why I do the sneaks, and you know that. I'm actually proud of the content I make and the stuff that I do. Hmm. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you don't think I do this just to make people simp. Has never been my goal. I have not, Carmea. Not yet. Hmm. Please do. Alright, I'll get you something. Mm. You live Minnie Whale's name. I know, it is a good name, ain't it? I also like sky whales. You ever see a sky whale? Sky whales are great. Big old whales floating through the sky. As they should, honestly. Mm-hmm. I do like Hitchhiker's Guide. I do like Hitchhiker's Guide. I was thinking, what's the other one? Star something. Where Shakespeare sees the sky whales. Mm-mm. The stars are now big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. Clap, 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 clap. Feels kind of goofy, all this, don't it? Waiting for stuff to grow so I can give it to a guy so I can eventually level him up to the point that I can get the mansion. Oh, that's all I want to do is get to the mansion. Chill and cozy, fair enough. Alright, y'all, we've almost gone for an extra hour on top of our normal streams, so we have gone an extra hour of our normal streams. So I think this is going to be what I call it, yeah? There is. Next time. It was a long stream. I got some things I want to do. I might just go take a little sleepy slap nap. No, I know. Yeah, I'll go lay in bed and read a book. It's been a long time since I read a book. Course. Don't a nap sound nice? Alright, we're doing ASMR technically right now, so. Oh, it's Da doing ASMR? Who should we raid, chat? Who you want to see? We want to raid Nadar then to see him do his ASMR? Yeah, we'll go raid Da. There we go. Alright, chat. Here we go. We're gonna do an EP raid this time. I appreciate y'all. Y'all been amazing. Y'all have a good one, alright? Say hi to Da for me and I'm gonna go lay down. Good night for now. Bye, lovelies. Mwah.